I'm just gonna say it. I'm struggling with a lot right now. The world, you name it. I don't feel great. I wish I had known this a long time ago, but there are 4 stages of alcoholism. And if I had known what each of these stages entailed, I might have made different choices. Probably not. I think I would have realized earlier that I had a problem. Alcoholism, it's a progressive disease. What does that mean? They would say that in rehab a lot. It's a progressive disease. The more you drink, the worse it gets for your body, the less likely you are to be able to stop. Despite consequences to your health and your life, it continues to get worse and worse. Even if you do stop drinking and then you start again, you'll pick up kind of where you left off. It continues to snowball. In looking back at my own life, alcohol use, disorder, problem drinking, have experienced the progressiveness of this disease firsthand. I didn't realize this until really breaking down every year or every season of my drinking in the past 20 years. It's so clear to me that my drinking fits into those stages pretty well. And then I could literally break down from 17 to now I'm 37 years old what those stages looked like, at what point I eventually got help. Let's get into it. I found this on some recovery site, which I can link below if you're interested in reading it. But I like this description. Why is alcoholism considered a progressive disease? Alcoholism is considered a progressive disease because without intervention and substance abuse treatment, it tends to worsen over time. Initially, individuals may be able to function relatively normally while drinking heavily. Over time, however, they may start to experience more severe consequences. Yeah, duh. Health problems, strained relationships, issues at work or school. Okay, that's generic. We all probably could have written that, but I just wanted to get that out there so we know what we're talking about, crystal clear. And what we're talking about is the progressive nature of alcoholism. The stages. Here are the stages of alcoholism. Pre-alcoholic stage. Occasional binge drinking or heavy drinking, often seen in college students or young adults. Okay, that's pre. Yeah. Early stage, early alcoholic stage. Increased tolerance and dependence on alcohol to function, as well as denial of the extent of their drinking. Does this sound familiar? It does for me. Middle alcoholic stage. Loss of control over drinking, increased negative consequences, and potential health effects. Late alcoholic stage. Alcoholism has taken over all aspects of an individual's life, and they may experience severe physical and mental health complications. I haven't seen it broken down like that and described in a way that was more digestible for me. It doesn't feel like you're going to the doctor's office and they're like, check these things, like here's like, how many drinks you've had. It's very like characterizing what it looks like to be in each stage, which I think is more relatable for people, at least for me. When I talk to people in recovery and in AA meetings, the stories are all over the place. Some people's stories are nuts. They're just, I can't relate to the drinking side. I'm like, I was never that bad. I never did XYZ. So then it had me questioning like my own alcohol use and disorder. Like, am I really an alcoholic? Do I really have a problem? And that gets dangerous. You don't have to be a late stage alcoholic to get help. I was not a late stage alcoholic before I got help. And even though I'm currently not a late stage alcoholic, I very well could be if I started to drink again. It can easily fool you, because it almost fooled me into thinking I wasn't an alcoholic and I didn't have a drinking problem when I went to rehab. Of course, I thought I had a drug problem. That's ultimately why I was there. In the last year, I've had to really come to terms with the fact that I can't ever drink again either, that I have a problem. But it's been hard when I hear stories that are like way worse than anything I ever did. Like, oh, I was never at that stage, but I very well could be. I don't feel like this is a mainstream thing to talk about. I feel like people are like, you don't have a drinking problem or you do, and it's very clear cut, but it's not. My rock bottom, I hope that was my rock bottom. Mark my words, that could very well not be my rock bottom. I could have a worse rock bottom if I go out and drink and do drugs again. Yeah, wrap your head around that. I'm trying to. For the last year, the narrative for me has been, that was my rock bottom. It was so bad. But the more I've learned about this disease, I fully understand that if I went out and drank again tomorrow, I would pick up where I left off. Let's just say this. If I drank tomorrow, maybe I wouldn't do drugs. I mean, probably, but if I didn't, I would end up being a way worse alcoholic than I was ever before I went to rehab. But let me rewind 15 years. 15 years ago, I was 22 years old. I was living in Portland, Oregon, out of college, I was single, I was partying. It was not the time of my life. At the time I thought that, but it wasn't. I was drinking, like, I was blacking out every weekend, okay? Like, can we go back to this really quick? Pre-alcoholic stage, occasional binge drinking or heavy drinking, often seen in college students or young adults. That's what I was doing. I was drinking 3 nights a week, let's say Thursday, Friday, Saturday, like blacking out. Like, that's what I was doing. I had the wherewithal when I was that age. I woke up one day and I don't remember what exactly had happened, but something scared me enough to be like, I think I have a drinking problem. So I stopped drinking for 6 months. I was like, I am done. I'm not gonna drink. And I did. I was like, easy. I can do this. I'm sober and I feel great. And I had no desire to drink. Go to Hawaii, visit a friend. There's a ton of partying there. Don't drink. I'm like, literally my willpower is like solid, it's so strong. I come back, go to my cousin's wedding, and I have a glass of wine. I'm like, I can drink. I can totally control my drinking because I quit for 6 months. I was happy, I was fine. Why would I start drinking again if I was happy when I wasn't drinking? Okay, that's a big clue. But so I start drinking again. Oh wait, let me back up. I did go to one AA meeting in that time period, and I remember leaving and being like, for sure not an alcoholic, for sure this isn't me. Because of everyone else's stories, they were like late stage. And I was like, no, it's not me. So I wish I would have had this little chart of information, because I would have been like, you're pre-alcoholic, okay? When I look at it, when I talk about this now, I'm like, my alcoholism totally convinced me that I wasn't an alcoholic when I was 22. So we're off to the races. I start drinking again. Fast forward 15 years, here we are, okay? So this is my point exactly. I had forgotten that I had quit drinking until I went to rehab. We did try to quit when we were 22 years old, because people ask you in rehab, oh, is this your first time quitting or trying to quit? And I was like, yeah, look how good I'm doing. And I was like, wait, no, I totally tried to quit when I was 22 and thought I was successful. From the time I was 22, where I stopped drinking till now, I burned my life to the ground, and it was really slow, but I did. And that is a testament to how alcoholism is a progressive disease. It starts out like, however, pre-alcoholic stage, you graduate into each stage as it progresses until you end up at your rock bottom, whatever that is for you. Hopefully your rock bottom isn't that you're dying, but for a lot of people it is. If you don't die in your rock bottom, then you get help. And then if you go pick up again a drink or drugs, then you just get dropped right back into where you were in the race. Like, it's not like you're like, oh, I'm far behind. You're like, no, you're right here. Like, you're still headed towards death, and you're not like any further away from it. So my pre-alcoholic stage looked like what I was talking about. Blacking out every weekend, hooking up with random people. Honestly, there were bits and pieces from these other stages that my life resembled. Like, for example, middle alcoholic stage, increased negative consequences. I 100% experienced that in like pre-alcoholic, early alcoholic stages. I would continue to drink even if bad things happened. And I would just tell myself, it's not the alcohol, it's these other things. It's not totally linear. I feel like there are things where I was like, oh, I'm jumping over here to like this closer to late stage alcoholism. But then I'd kind of rein it in. And then it would kind of like, does this make sense? Like a jellyfish. We're moving towards the late stage alcoholic here, but we're doing it slowly because we're kind of like teetering on each thing, but it gets worse and worse and worse. I don't know if that makes sense to you or if that resonates, if that visual really resonates with me. Early stage alcoholism, increased tolerance and dependence. This is literally the bulk of what my alcohol career, whatever, looked like. I had a high tolerance. I was dependent, but not so dependent that I really knew it. I'm going to drink enough to be drunk and buzzed, but not so much that I'm going to black out or not be able to function the next day at work. And that's what I did for a long time. I was, I guess you could say, a high functioning alcoholic, which arguably isn't even a thing because it's progressive. That's what my life looked like. I would drink every single day. At night, I would work all day, drink after work, get drunk, wake up, be hungover, and then do it all over again. And I would exercise. I would like run off all the alcohol. I would like sweat it all out. And I was like, this is just how you live. Like, this is normal. And I will say, asterisk, that because I started doing drugs and using substances, it really like accelerated my substance use disorder to the point that I was dying physically. And so then I got help, but like it wasn't the alcohol necessarily. Like, it slowed the alcohol use down, but with how I was drinking, if I had kept that up and not started doing drugs, eventually I would have gotten to rehab, but I think it would have been later on. So I am thankful that, let's just say I'm thankful I got into rehab earlier. My point is that you don't have to be a late stage alcoholic to be an alcoholic. I mean, hopefully you don't end up there. That's how at least I started to see it. Never made it to middle stage. I was early stage alcoholic, I would say, for a long time. But these other people that I met in rehab or in AA meetings have really harrowing stories about alcohol that I just don't have. I've had to really work hard at shifting my mindset to not comparing myself to those people and thinking, oh, well, I wasn't like that. I never had that harrowing experience. Like, I shouldn't be here. I have to look at it as though that could be me and it will be me if I pick up a drink today or tomorrow. That's like a hard thing to imagine, but it's just kind of like playing this movie forward in my head. If I believe that it's progressive, then logically I will end up there. And what helps me really understand that is to imagine if I were to end up there, what that would look like. That's why it's so important to understand this, because you get sober, like in the earlier stages of being an alcoholic, it's easier to think like it's not that bad, especially when you talk to other alcoholics. But knowing it's progressive can be pivotal in sticking around in recovery if you're early on, if you were early on in your alcoholism when you got into recovery. Those are the 4 stages of alcoholism. If you're looking for more of a qualitative explanation of what those stages look like, not how many drinks do you have a week, how many a day, whatever, blah, blah, you can rationalize those things, okay? You know what I'm saying? This is a more human approach to understanding maybe where you fall in your alcoholism. If you're curious, maybe you're not, or maybe you have someone in your life who you're like, are they an alcoholic? This is a great reference for that. So I hope this video is helpful. I will link this below, and there you go.